Thanks for tuning in to episode 7 of First Down by CoachTools. Today we're talking with Coach Charles Cerney from outside of Orlando, Florida, about high school football coaches' success. Hope you enjoy. To start things off, Coach, could you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm started teaching right out of college, actually elementary PE, and then I hopped into the football coaching realm, really kind of on a whim, watching high school football on a Friday night. And I was like, man, I really think I could help these guys. And I didn't really know anything about coaching or anything, and it just
Gotcha.
so happened that off season, the they had a head coaching change at that school that I had watched the game at, and so I went when they hired somebody. I went to them and just said, "Hey, I'll volunteer, coach. The kicker. I don't care, whatever. Just I want to get into coaching, and I'll volunteer and give me something to do." And
Gotcha.
he actually hired me and made me the offensive coordinator for the JV team and the head coach of the JV team, and so I had to learn everything right away. Kind of threw me in the deep end of the pool, and
Yeah.
but it was good. It was a good learning experience. It was a small school, so there was only a handful of coaches anyway. So he didn't really have a choice either.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just tried to absorb as much as I could and turned that into a varsity offensive position about 4 years later, and then moved schools again and offensive coordinator, special teams, dabbled with a little bit of defense, and then finally was able to be a head coach. Finally got that opportunity, which is hard to get down here in Florida because everybody wants you to have experience, but you can't get experience if you don't get hired. So it's hard to get interviews, hard to get the job, but I finally did, and then had some good coaches with me that ended up also getting head jobs and left me, and so I elevated my offensive coordinator or my offensive line coach to offensive coordinator, and then switched over to the dark side and been doing defense the last couple of years, and then the school wanted to make a change at head coach, so I'm moving over to Mount Dora. I'm going to be a defensive coordinator over there, and excited about that. It's kind
That's
of
exciting.
coaching in a nutshell.
Nice. So my first question for you, Coach, is going back to your early days when you kind of got thrown into the fire when you were really young. What do you think you would have, or you would like to tell yourself now, having all this experience for somebody who's brand new into the coaching profession?
Uh, be aware of what you don't know, and and be willing to learn and absorb as much as you can, good and bad. So I tried, like, even when I finally became a head coach, I tried to think back to those early days, even to right before I was a head coach, and all the things and all the coaches I'd worked for and with, and things I liked that they did and things I didn't like that they did, and tried to incorporate all the good. I'm sure that my coaches had some things, for me that they liked and didn't like, and that's okay. That's, because we're all humans, and that's the way it is. But
Yeah.
I would say definitely just try and absorb as much as you can, and be willing to learn, and don't think you know everything.
Mhm.
I don't even think that now. So
Right. And I think anybody, whatever they're doing, there always is room to improve and learn on whatever it is that you're working on. So going off of that and knowing everything you do that you know now, what would you say success means for you as a coach? And I'll leave that up to however you want to interpret that.
for me, success has been recently, of course, as I've gotten older. It's been able to see the the kids that I coached, now all grown up. This school that I was the head coach at formerly was also the same school where I started coaching all those years ago, and so I actually had a couple kids on the team that I had coached their dads, and so
Wow.
that was kind of neat. So that was kind of its own success in a way, to see that and get to interact with those kids that were now adult fathers, and get to talk about reliving some of that past with them and their experiences and how their kids were kind of the same and different, and deal with some of that. But my successes are seeing kids graduate, seeing kids get opportunities to play in college, whether they choose to take those or not. That's always up to the kids if they want to
Yeah.
travel and do that. So they don't always take advantage of that, but at least they've had the opportunity. I was real big on grades and pushing that, because they at some point, even if you make it into the league, the football ends and you got to have something to
Right.
fall back on. So
Definitely. And so going with just making players better overall people. How would you say that you did that? And to get a little more specific, with regards to like feedback and just overall player development.
Tried to do some character work with them. There was a book I like to use. It was Coaching to Change Lives. I believe the author was Dennis Parker, I want to say. But he spoke at a clinic one time forever ago, and I ended up buying his book, and that was neat, doing the character lessons and things like that, and kind of evolved from that into stuff with Tim and Brian Kite and their leadership, the stuff you see a lot of the Ohio State has kind of made that popular, the E plus R equals O things and all that, which I don't need to get into unless you want me to, but it's really just about relationships and getting to know the kids and letting them know that you care about them, and that we all want to win games, but ultimately we just want to be able to have relationships that are going to last outside of the game, because like I said a minute ago, it's going to end. So I think the relationships are what's really important.
Sure. Got it. And then what else would you say, talking about success, separates a really good coach from a great coach?
That's a good question. Having athletes helps. That always helps. But I just think the great ones are able to get those kids to reach down and dig a little deeper, and they're able to pull out a little bit more than maybe even the kids thought they had in themselves, and get them to believe in themselves, and push that little bit extra that they need to push in the weight room, conditioning, learning their plays on either side of the ball, whatever it is, running just a little bit harder, or, not cheating the line on a sprint, whatever it is. Those great coaches really get those out of those kids without having to feel forced. I think. And that's not immediate. I think that goes back to the relationships where those kids know that you're doing that and you're pushing them and you're demanding of them because they know that you want what's best for them. So they trust you.
Yeah. And I think trust is a huge part about it, because at the end of the day, if they don't trust you, they're not going to have a belief in you. And especially when you're 15, 16 or 17 years old, if you don't trust whoever is coaching you, it's a lot more difficult to focus on those small details, like actually touching the line on every single sprint or completing every rep. So I totally see how you mean with that.
Sure.
Got it. And so was there anything else, Coach, that you think would be good for, I guess, anybody out there to know or understand about your experience?
I'm a big believer in keeping things simple.
Mm-hmm.
I have a podcast as well. Then my episode that's going to be coming out here in the next day or two is I talked a lot about keeping things simple and not overcomplicating things. And it's like you just said, they're 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that also have algebra homework to do and an essay to write for English and, science tests to study for. And then you want them to also remember that they've got to step with their left foot on this play and their right foot on that play, or read this guard, through to a tailback or whatever it is. Remember this coverage, they line up this way, but this other coverage, they line up this way. And if you can keep it as simple as you can out on the field, you're just making life for them easier, which ultimately makes it easier for you as well.
Right. And I feel like the more that you can make it simple and actually help them to conceptualize it, like the easier it's going to go when you practice. And then when you practice it, obviously that's when you can actually conceptualize it and understand it. And it becomes like second nature from my experience.
Which then lets them play faster.
Yeah, 100%.
And they're free to be able to make plays and do what their talent allows them to do. Yeah,
totally. Okay, so that's everything I had to talk about today, Coach. So I'll leave it with that. And thank you everybody for listening today. And again, this is Coach Charles Cerney from
Yep.
outside of Orlando, Florida. So thanks again for listening.
Thank you.